how do you feel when you meet God face to face? Very disarmed, very, you're completely naked kind of feeling, there's nothing you can hide from, nothing that you need to hide from Him. He knows every cell in your body. You have that feeling, complete cleansing.
First, let us know about how you come into this Swami's fold.
Thank you, Brother Yong. Actually, it's a blessing for us to be here this afternoon at this time. How I came to be with Swami, the story goes back to 1970s actually. 1970s.
Long time
everybody,
ago.
Everybody has a mother-in-law story to tell. I too have a mother-in-law story to tell. It started with me accompanying my mother-in-law when she used to go for what were the only house where they had Swami's bhajans. That's with Uncle Dutt's family. He was the principal of Sima College then. The bhajans in those days, there was no singing. It was just listening to audio taped bhajans, and they all sit silently. So they try to sing along as the bhajan goes, and that's it. My job was to accompany my mother-in-law back from Uncle Dad's house, walk her back because we stay about 300 meters away. At night, I accompany her back. But those days, I didn't think much of it because there were so many other Swamijis around, especially in the 60s and 70s. You had all the Rajni, Islam, Maharishi, Maharishi, and all that kind of things, and transcendental meditation and things like that. It went on until I got my hands on a booklet by Marfat, the Man of Miracles. When I read that, of course, the miracle parts was astounding. But what was even more appealing was the teachings of Swami that was mentioned in the book. It was very simple and easy to understand. And it sort of resonated with my background knowledge of Indian spirituality and teachings that I had been reading from Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, from Swami Vivekananda, and Ramana Maharshi, and all that. So I was taken up very much by, so I began to have great respect for, it was not just any other Swami from India. I had the respect for Swami at that time in the 70s.
Okay, good.
And then, but I was a bit more reverential in fetching my mother-in-law to the various places. But I can't say I suddenly jumped on the bandwagon and became a devotee then itself. I did not, frankly. Until the 1980s, when my children were, I think my youngest daughter, there was an occasion I remember. She was only 2 years old. That means could have been 81, I think. She was perpetually falling sick. Perpetually falling sick. There was a time when we were visiting the doctor almost every month for her, In fact, the doctor was a family friend. Some months, if we don't go and see him, he'll say, "Hey, why you didn't come this month? Everything is okay in the family, is it?" So he used to pull my leg in that way. But she was very sick, and there was one time, 2-3 months it went on. It was some kind of viral attack, or I don't know what it was. And there was a point when she could hardly move. All the time, literally lying in the bed like a vegetable. And that's the time I really prayed to Swami. And I appealed to him, say, if you really, what is said about you is the truth, please help me. help my child at this time. And the very next day, the next morning, that daughter who could hardly sit up even was sitting up and walking around. That really astounded me. That really astounded me. And then I started attending. By that time, the bhajans was in Penang was no more in houses. It had moved to the Krishna temple. So from then on, I used to not only drop my mother-in-law, I used to sit through the bhajans. At that time, they were already singing, no more using tapes and all that. So that is how I first came to be introduced to Swami and his powers. I became interested in his discourses. We were beginning at that time in the 80s at the Krishna temple, began to be getting books, other books written by Swami or about Swami. At the Krishna temple, they used to be selling, one of the uncles used to be selling the books and all that. So from that, I began to read up much more on his teachings. And then his teachings really, because they were so phrased in such simple terms, in terms of language for us to understand and to apply in our life.
I see.
So that drew me much closer to him.
Brother Sarah, I understand your first trip to India to see Swami was quite a dramatic experience. Please share with us.
Okay. First of all, I must confess, even though I was very attracted to Swami's teachings and I was quite absorbed in many of his discourses, reading and trying to understand and apply, there was really no urge in me to go and have Swami's darshan in his physical form. But that changed dramatically when in the course of doing a program for Penang State event for Sai, sort of exhibition kind of thing, I had to interview one of our Sai devotees, Brother Ang, who unfortunately right now is in Lamwai Hospital. I asked Brother Ang, just like what you're asking me today, about how he came to be with Sai Baba. In fact, I asked him point blank, you are Chinese. What is your interest in this Afro, those days we call it Afro hairstyle, the Indian man who is living in such a remote area? What makes you go all the way to India to go and meet him? Because he has had personal experience and interviews with Swami, is it? And his response really floored me, shook me up, He told me, Brother Sarah, I'm paraphrasing, I can't remember his exact words. I said, Brother Sarah, school days we read about Jesus Christ. We read about Buddha. Nowadays we read about Prophet Muhammad. We also read about Guru Nanak. All of them are not here, They are all voicing God in one way or the other for us to hear and improve ourselves. Here is one person, Sathya Sai Baba, who claims that he is God descent as an avatar. I think it is my duty now in this lifetime to make use of this opportunity to go and meet him. In short, this is what he told me. That really floored me, because that response coming from him really floored me. Here I was trying to understand Swami's teachings, trying to apply it in my life, and I had not taken a single step to try and meet with Swami, I made the decision then to make a trip to Puttaparthi. That's in 2002. And I went with a group of other devotees from Penang. Sister Ong Pek Swan from Penang was leading us to Puttaparthi. Those days, the flights to Bangalore, a direct flight to Bangalore was there, but only twice a week. We had a good darshan from Swami. That first face-to-face encounter was very disarming for me.
How you feel?
It's hard to describe. First time that you're seeing, you already accept him as God descent as an avatar. That time itself, no more just as a holy man.
Yeah.
You already accept him as, how do you feel when you meet God face to face? Very disarmed, very, you're completely naked kind of feeling. There's nothing you can hide from, nothing that you need to hide from him. He knows every cell in your body. You have that feeling, complete cleansing of you have a feeling that you're completely cleansed, kind of feeling. That's what I had. We were there for about 4 or 5 days. I can't remember the exact number of days. Every day we had darshan, no interviews, nothing. I was hoping that there will be some discourse from him, but we didn't have any discourse. And then the group left for Malaysia, but I took the opportunity to extend my stay by another 2 weeks or so to go back to Kerala, where my family members are still there, to be with them and also to visit some of the temples, major temples in Kerala, which has been a family tradition for me. So I went back. In fact, I went by train back to Kerala. And then before I could start on the temple tour, I went to visit my father's elder brother is at that time still in Kerala. I went to visit him. He was bedridden at that time. Actually, my father here was also not bedridden, but he was already 80-something and he was quite dementia kind of state. So I went to anyway pay my respects to his elder brother in India. He was already bedridden at that, but he could recognize me. He couldn't speak, but he could recognize me. So he made signs to his wife, my auntie there, to serve me, to be hospitable and to serve me drinks and food and all that. We saw and then we came back. The very next day, I'm supposed to arrange for a car there to take us around to all the temples. It would go from crisscrossing about 100 kilometers or so. And then we get a phone call from my uncle's family saying he has passed away. And his children are much younger than me. And they request that since I am there, whether I could do the rituals associated with the funeral and the period of mourning for that, which is normally 16 days. And then we explained to them, look, I'm not going to be there for 16 days. Then they spoke to the priest and all that. They tried to shorten it, conduct additional prayers and all that to do it within 7 days. So I postponed my temple trip by the 7 days and then took part in all the prayers for my father's elder brother there. We completed all the prayers in that 7 days. I still had another 7 days for which I wanted to do the tour. Then on the morning that I'm supposed to leave on the tour, those days I think the handphone was not that prevalent. I don't recall using the handphone at that time. We received a telegram, I think. The news came on a telegram saying my father in Penang has passed away. Actually, sorry, not in Penang. He was in Kedah with my mother, my stepmother's house in Kedah, had passed away. So then again, I have to abandon my temple visits, and then try to come back here earlier. But because flights were only twice a week from Bangalore, Mas said, sorry, full, you can't, no point in coming along. So then we consulted with the family elders what to do in that week. They said, okay, since you cannot go to temple because once there's a death in the immediate family, you are considered as polluted, you can't enter temples. Huh? That's why my earlier week also I had to do for my uncle. Now for my own father also, because I'm polluted, I cannot go. What they said is, if you want, you can't go to temples, but you can go and visit some living saint. And that's how I ended up in the ashram of Mother Amardananda Mai. That ashram is about 100 kilometers from where my sister stays. I was staying with her there. She's married and settled there. So we went to the ashram there and we spent about 4 days there. In the very first night itself, we got darshan from her. It happened that she was also there. She travels quite a bit. She was there. She's the hugging saint, we call her the hugging saint at that time. When I went for darshan and she was hugging me, she told me, she held my hand and she said, son, there's so much of sorrow in you. You just sit beside me. She held my hand and made me sit next to her. And then just petted me while other devotees started coming. So I just sat there as she was hugging other saints. And again, within that a few minutes, I had a sense of great relief. Already my uncle had passed away there. And then now my father has passed away here. I'm the eldest son. I'm not able to go and perform the prayers for him. Whereas I could do it for his own elder brother here in India at that time. So all this kind of dejection and turmoil was going on in me. Sitting there a few minutes, I felt very relieved. So once I felt quite and then the place was so full of people all around. I thought it's not fair to other devotees for me to be monopolizing sitting by her side for too long. So I asked one of the assistants, is it okay for me now to go? So if you feel you're all right, then you please can go off. So anyway, we had continued to be there for a few days. And then after that, from there, we made our way back to Bangalore by road. On the way, we stopped at Mysore. And the reason I stopped at Mysore is because since I couldn't do the prayers for my father come back in time to do it in Malaysia, they said, in Mysore, I got a cousin who stays there. He said, you come to Mysore first. Mysore, then you go to Bangalore. It's on the way, not off the way, is it? There is a confluence of rivers where many people go and do this funeral prayers at that place. You come there, we will do it at this place. And then you can continue. So we had gone to Mysore, we had checked into a hotel. The next morning, I'm supposed to go and do the prayers. I suddenly get, later what I'm told, is a supraventricular tachycardia, SVT. A layman's terms, we call it a racing heartbeat. The normal heartbeat is about 70 to 80. In this condition, my heartbeat had suddenly shot up to about 200 beats per minute. It was going at that. So to cut a long story short, first my cousin took me to a GP, then to a specialist who insisted I be admitted and brought the heartbeat down to normal after being admitted under observation for 1 day. So he said this can recur and I have to be very careful about this condition. And then only, so I missed doing the prayers there for my father again because the thing was there. It was anyway 2 more days for my normal scheduled flight already.
Yeah.
So we quickly made our way back to Bangalore. And when we reached Bangalore, as happens in India often, there was some kind of industrial turmoil going on down there. Luckily, because my cousin was there, he told us, don't stay in the town hotel because you might have difficulty making your way to the airport in the morning. So he made some special arrangements for me to go and stay in some golf club residence quite close to the airport. So within 15 minutes or 20 minutes, unless there's a terrible jam, we could make it to the airport in time. And so that's how I came back to Malaysia.
So, Brother Sarah, in terms of your involvement in Penang Center,
Yes.
tell us some of these activities that you're involved in.
Yeah, at Penang, I've always been with Penang Center. I mean, it started with Krishna Temple, which evolved into the Penang Center. They got the registration while in the Krishna Temple. Then they moved to the present premises at Harbour Trade Center in the 1990s. And then somewhere in the first decade of this century, that means 2004 or 5 or around that time, the serving chairman, now Dato Professor Sandiram, had to leave Penang. So then the seniors, elders discussed among themselves, and then I was elected at the AGM. It so happened the AGM was quite close to the year. I was elected as the chairman. And then I served for 2 terms, and then I stepped down. But after that, then I continued to be an active member in terms of being coordinator for one thing or the other for most of the period after that. Currently, I still continue to be in that capacity. I serve as a service coordinator, and I assist the spiritual coordinator happens to be also the chairman. So normally he would ask me to assist him in conducting the study circles. And then the STP, Self-Transformation Program, and the Parent Care Program, these are both in which I'm trained to be a moderator kind of thing. So we conduct that also. So we are doing the STP as a cluster activity, and also the study of the Bhagavad Gita also is another activity that we do as a cluster. So this cluster activity we do with members from Penang Center, members from Glogor Center, and members from Northeast District. 3 centers together, we do the STP. And the moderators for this come from all 3 centers also.
So back to Swami's teachings and discourses. As you mentioned earlier, Swami is not here to teach something new, but he actually put it in such a simple way that people can imbibe. What are some of the, for example, key simple teachings that you can share with us that you kind of very close to your heart?
The simplest, let's say the simplest thing is, which again, as I say, it's not just Swami alone, but even in others have said, is help ever, hurt never. This is something that in many other, Jesus has also said it, to the Buddha has also said it to some extent, Guru Nanak probably has said it. It's very easy and it makes sense. Help ever, hurt never. That anybody can do, whatever, you don't need a lot of knowledge, you don't need a lot of education, you don't need any status, nothing in anything that you do, in everything that you do in your daily life. If you can, along the way, you help somebody and make sure you don't hurt anybody. If you can just do that one thing in life, all the others will on its own automatically come down showering on you.
So again, my final question is like, Swami, at this stage of your understanding, what is Swami to you?
As a Hindu, Swami to me is like Sri Rama or Sri Krishna is an avatar. He's an avatar. That means God descent in human form to save mankind. Sri Rama came to save the world from Ravana. Was a completely a different clan from his own. In the case of Sri Krishna, he came to save family members from other members of the same family, because the evil was within one family. Now they say, now this is Kali Yuga. Now the evil is in each of us. Evil is in each of us. God cannot come in the form of Sri Rama with his bow and arrow, or like Sri Krishna with his Sudarshan Chakra, trying to vanquish the foes, because it's in everyone. He has this avatar, logically the avatar who comes has to save mankind through his teachings of love. Love all, serve all. The ideal situation. So it's logical. I mean, people say, oh, he is not like Krishna. He is not able to lift up mountains. He is not able to duplicate himself into 100 people. But that's of a past era. That's not what is required now, because the evil is not there. The evil is here.
Thank you so much, Brother Sara, for sharing this afternoon with us. And may God and Swami bless you always.
Sai Ram, and thank you for honoring me with this opportunity to share my experiences.